if your wife is leaving you or has left you. She has been planning this for a long time, and she has been on the fence for a long time. And good men can get caught in the minutia of where did this come from? It came out of the blue. Or some good men can know she's been threatening a long time and planning a long time. And it's easy for you to get caught in what could I have done differently? What did I do? What did I not do that could have changed this outcome? Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Today, what we're talking about, a little bit more serious of a topic today. We're talking about when your wife leaves you and 3 things good men need to know. And the reason I'm talking about that today is I've had a lot of really good men reaching out lately, and I have talked with at least 5 men in the last 2 weeks who are struggling with the emotional turmoil and emotional pain of their wife leaving them. And so I want to give you guys some perspective and a big picture roadmap of how to navigate and how to best support yourself, and most importantly, how to heal through your wife leaving and knowing that it is extremely devastating, crushing, and a very, very difficult time. So I'm so sorry for those of you who are going through that. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. And I want to give you, like I said, a roadmap today. And even though it is a devastating, very difficult time, nothing that I share and teach today is meant to diminish your experience going through the pain of your wife leaving. Today's show might feel like a dose of reality and some difficult truths. The purpose being so that you can have a plan, you can have a roadmap to overcome, rebuild, and heal. That is the purpose. What I'm sharing today comes from and what I have been taught by my mentor, David, who went through a difficult divorce about 20 years ago. He was married for 20 years. He has 4 children, all adult grown children now. But when he got divorced, they were still young, still teenagers and still at home. And through David's divorce, he lost his business. He was a very successful businessman. He lost all his money. He lost the ability to see his children every day and went through a very, very difficult time, which was the catalyst for him to have some deep inner awareness and awakenings that paved the path for him to help others, and including myself and hundreds and hundreds of other people. And then I've had the blessing to have been trained and mentored by him professionally. I want the men listening to know this comes from a good man's perspective and what he has had to learn and what he teaches other good men. We've been doing this a long time, and we've worked with many men in the situation of their wives leaving them. And this is the advice and support that we give them. If you are in this experience and it's very fresh and very raw, what I'm going to share today might be difficult to hear, but my experience is even when these things are difficult to hear, good men are problem solvers, and you want to face it and see these things and move forward even when it's difficult and emotionally painful. But if it's very raw and fresh and difficult to hear and you're not ready yet, that's okay. It's best to shelve this one and come back when you are ready. So just to set that up, Where we are going to go today, after I give kind of a big picture of some really important things and setting up being in camp, take responsibility through this experience the best that you can and not getting stuck in camp victim, that we're going to talk a little bit about that first and some very important precursors to the other part that I want to share today, which is 3 things good men need to know. And then at the end, I do have a message to women who are leaving good men. And again, that's the framework of which we are looking at. So before we get into those 3 things, the big picture is that you want to have the reality of what is happening so that you can be in that reality. That is the only way to heal and begin to move forward. You have to see the reality of what is happening, because when your wife leaves you, it's a very, very confusing time, and it is easy to get lost in the details, the drama, and the chaos that your wife is creating for you and the family by leaving. And when a good man gets lost in those details and the drama and the chaos, it's very, very difficult to stay grounded in reality and have a pragmatic view of what's happening, even through the emotional pain and the difficulty. Part of the purpose of being in the reality and seeing what's really going on, again, in everything I teach, through difficult experiences such as your wife leaving, to the things that I teach women and the other perspectives I teach good men, my goal in anything that I teach and anyone that I'm speaking to is moving from camp victim of this has happened to me, and moving to camp take responsibility of, yes, this has happened, and how do I want to respond, and who do I want to be in this, again, for the purpose of actually being able to heal, to rebuild and recreate your life. So that's really, really important to know. And everything I'm teaching today, we're looking at that in order to heal, in order to move forward in anything in life, including if your wife has left you, we have to be in camp take responsibility. So with that being said, one of the first things that good men need to know if your wife is leaving you or has left you, she has been planning this for a long time. And she has been on the fence for a long time. And good men can get caught in the minutia of, where did this come from? It came out of the blue. Or some good men can know she's been threatening a long time and planning a long time. And it's easy for you to get caught in, what could I have done differently? What did I do? What did I not do that could have changed this outcome? And you have to know she's been planning this, and it's from a place of being unhappy in herself and fantasizing that there's some other life out there. There's some other man that will make her happy because you haven't been able to. Good men try. You do everything you can, everything you know to do, everything she asks to try to make her happy, and it doesn't work because she's unhappy in herself, and there's nothing you can do to change that or make that better for her or make her happy. So you have to know that it doesn't mean that you didn't make mistakes or that good men don't have challenges or problems. But a woman leaving a good man who treats her well, who goes above and beyond to try to do the things to make her happy, until some men get to a point of like, understandably and reasonably, nothing works, so they give up. But a woman leaving a good man, she's been planning it. It's her own unhappiness. And you have to know that to be able to begin healing, because it's so easy as a good man to get sucked into the brainwashing and the gaslighting, and that there's nothing you could have done. The only thing is to have learned to be in your power and navigate the emasculation, which you get brainwashed and sucked into it. And that would not have been any guarantee that she still wouldn't have left. So there is nothing you could have done. She's been planning it. She's made her mind up, and this is the direction she was going to go. The next thing that's really important and perspective good men want to have In the men that I've talked to, especially in the last couple weeks and just over the years and comments that I read, it is a very common theme amongst good men because of your nature of being committed, of having integrity, of actually taking your vows very seriously, that when your wife leaves, will be in a place of what can I do to get her back and what can I do to save the marriage? It's fascinating to me the things that good men have shared with me and the mistreatment and the emasculation that they have had to withstand in their marriage, that they still want to be with their wife and still want to try to make things work. That even though you've been treated so poorly through the emasculation and made to feel bad and wrong and constantly criticized, that you want to continue to try and make it work and hold on even when the marriage is broken. So this is a hard truth, especially if you're in a raw place of this. But you need to let go. That your wife leaving is a sign that it is time to move forward. And you want to realize that as difficult and challenging as this experience is, that we have to normalize the adversities and challenges in life, especially in this circumstance of your wife leaving, that it is common and happens to so many men. And you can know that through the connection you have through this community with each other, through reading through the comments and knowing that 50% of first marriages fail, 65% of second marriages fail, and 75% of third marriages fail. And that it's anywhere from what I've read, 70 to 90% of the time, it's a woman initiating the divorce. So what that means, it doesn't mean to minimize your experience, but that this is a very, very common challenge and adversity that men go through. When we can normalize it, it helps us to face it pragmatically and again, grounded in reality so we don't get lost in the emotional pain and the holding on, which perpetuates the emotional pain and prevents you from being able to heal and move forward. So it is best to accept it as a sign that it is time to move forward and to focus on rebuilding yourself, reflecting, seeing the reality, getting strong in yourself, confident in yourself, understanding what happens and your weakness in the face of emasculation so that you can regain yourself and you can create a new life. Don't get caught in holding on because it will put you in camp victim. And we're going to talk a little bit about how a good man can get caught in that holding on and what's actually happening so you can see through it and support yourself even through the emotional pain of the loss. Again, we want to be in camp take responsibility. And through loss and your wife leaving, it's very easy in our humanness to get lost in camp victim, that this has happened to me, and feeling not in control of your experience and getting very lost in the anger and in the hurt. You do not want to turn up in camp victim, angry and jaded and hating women because you got hurt and the marriage didn't work out. Another hard truth to hear is understanding that we have to come back to knowing that life is full of adversity. Life is full of tragedies, and we have a choice. When we're presented with the right context, then we can learn that we have a choice in how do we want to face it and how do we want to move forward. I like to look at when I face loss in life and I face adversity, and what my mentor has taught me is I have to look at what other people go through in life and the depth of adversity that people can face in life And those people that choose in the face of that adversity and tragedy that I will likely never know in my lifetime, that they overcome it and they create a life and they thrive even in the face of that challenge and adversity. And it's because they made a choice. They saw the crossroads. They saw the crossroads that they could get stuck in what's happened to them and give up, or that they can make a choice of, how do I grow and learn from this? How do I take this and make myself even stronger? And then men going through their wife leaving, you have that same choice. So I found a story recently that I found incredibly inspiring. And I find these stories, and I think most of us do in our humanness, really inspiring, of like, wow, I don't know how I would show up in life in the face of that. And this person is an inspiration that if they can do this, then I can face the loss in my life and the adversities in my life and choose to overcome and choose to rebuild and choose to heal. So the story I found recently is a man, his name is Bill Fullerton, and just an everyday guy. 23 years ago, he was in his, I think, mid-20s, and he was in a dirt bike accident, and he became a C5, C6 quadriplegic. And he shares that he's got strong arms and he does not have use of his hands. His hands are non-functioning. And he goes on just to share his story of his rehab and what happened and where he's gotten to. And what I found amazing were the things that he had to learn to do for himself. He lives on his own. It's been 23 years since his accident. He lives completely on his own. And these are the things that he's having to do just for himself. And as a quadriplegic, using the bathroom, and he has to give himself his own catheter, getting dressed, learning to hold silverware so he can eat on his own, holding a pen to write. And remember, he doesn't have function of his hands, transferring from bed to chair as best as he can. He works and now, like I said, lives on his own. He got an adapted vehicle so he can drive. He works. And when you see the picture of this man, he is happy, and you can see it in his face and see it in his smile. And he had a choice in that. He had a choice to give up after that accident, which many people do in that kind of a situation, but he didn't. That's not the life that he wanted for himself. So I share that story because we have that choice through the different losses in our life, like a divorce or our spouse leaving. It's us that has to make that choice. People do that in other adversities. There's people in business who lose absolutely everything and then start over and try again and do that again and again and again and again. I like to think of Stephen Hawking, who got ALS in his early 20s. They gave him till he was 25 to live, and he beat the odds because he made a choice. Like, he wanted a life and he wanted to do what he was here to do, and he did it. So I want the good men to hear that out there who are experiencing their wife leaving, that you have that same choice. And it's easy to get caught, especially when we're in that place of camp victim. It's easy to see this is unfair and also that the system is against you, and to give up and allow that to overtake you. Or you can see it as an opportunity to grow and learn, and that you do have that choice. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's hard and it's emotionally painful, but you can rebuild and you can overcome. And I believe very firmly that God never gives us anything that we cannot handle. And God gives us test after test after test after test in life. If that's not your orientation, then you can think of it as just life. That life never gives us anything we can't handle, and life gives us test after test after test after test. It's up to us what we do with it. And I believe that is the purpose of life, that we are here to become strong in ourselves. We are here to overcome. We are here to learn and grow. But it's up to us to take that adversity, take those challenges, and make that choice. So that's the setup of what I wanted to talk about, to give you that reality of what you need to know so that you can make that choice and you can heal, and you can use this as a time to grow, to learn, and overcome. And now I want to get into 3 very important things that good men need to know as they face their wife leaving. Number 1, your wife leaving is a loss. Number 1, your wife leaving is a loss. And that's really, really important to know. So what's interesting is that in everything I teach and everything I've been taught and mentored on actually all started in learning a new path to heal from grief and loss. Because that was my mentor, David, who I shared had gone through a devastating divorce, that he had to learn. He was going through the experience of grief and what that internal experience was of himself and how he was going to heal and move forward. So everything that I started out learning was tied to grief and loss and helping people heal from grief and loss. If you look me up on Google, you'll find a very old Yelp page in Denver that the very first thing that I specialized in helping people in the ways that I've been taught was through divorce recovery, because that was my background and initial expertise was helping people overcome grief. And I chose that field and specialization because it is such a common loss and something that's very difficult for us as humans to face. In understanding that your wife leaving is a loss, it's important to know that so that you understand your emotional experience of grief, because it can be completely all-consuming, and we can feel quite crazy sometimes in the experience of grief. And when we know that and can understand that that's our experience, we can navigate it much better and from a much more practical, pragmatic place. What I've been taught about grief and loss, if you could imagine, based on the other things that I teach, is a very different perspective than what is out there in traditional psychology and in the bereavement community. So I come from a different perspective of understanding the mind and our internal human experience of grief and loss. And one of the things that's very different about what we teach is that even though everybody grieves differently, that the internal experience of grief and loss is a universal experience. That the one thing we all have in common is we are human, and that we face loss over and over and over again in life. And the internal experience, the psychological experience of grief is universal. And that's an important concept to let in, because it allows us to take it from feeling just so big and overwhelming to bringing it down so that we can move through it again practically and pragmatically the best that we can. Doesn't mean that it's not difficult. That concept isn't meant to diminish your experience. We also have to, this is something that I've talked about before, is a psychological concept of external locus of control or internal locus of control. An external locus of control of grief is that the experience is happening to me. That in this case, my wife has left, and that is causing my internal emotional experience. It is the catalyst, but as long as we use the experience of loss of that it's happening to me, we put the power and control outside of us, and we cannot heal. So we have to have a perspective shift to come to an internal locus of control, that I do not have control of the people and things outside of me, but that I have control of my response, and that my emotional experience is an internal experience, which is a good thing, because then I put the control back into me, which is necessary in order to heal and move forward. I have to take responsibility for my internal experience and reaction and response to the loss And when I do that, I put myself in the position, we put ourselves in the position to be able to heal. And that's something I had to be taught. And now I have the honor of teaching other people, because the truth is that life is a series of losses, whether we want to look at that and realize that or not. Life is a series of losses. If we think about it, many people, their first loss might be moving when they're kids. That's a loss. Or their parents divorcing. Over time, we lose friends, either physically through death or the friendships dissolve. As adults, we might go through a divorce. Children grow up and leave the house. That's a loss. Our parents dying, our siblings dying, losing a job, losing pets, losing a business. I know some of you in the audience, my avid listeners, have had the experience of going off to war and have faced tremendous loss in that experience. The purpose of understanding that life is this series of losses is so that we can embrace it as a normal part of life, that it is life, and that it's emotionally painful and difficult, and we have to learn how to heal and learn to navigate loss, because it's just, again, it's a part of our life. I see in the bereavement community and some of the traditional perspectives on grief and loss are very damaging and will keep us in camp victim of thinking that loss never goes away. It's something we deal and cope with over time, but it's always there with us, that it is a unique individual experience and there's no one size fits all, that these are concepts that will put us into an external locus of control and again, keep us stuck in being a victim, which prevents us from being able to heal. Part of understanding the experience of loss in that internal locus of control is to understand the pain that we begin to feel in the experience of loss. Is we have to think about that our whole self-identity was wrapped up in the relationship that we lost. So in this case, for good men and your wife leaving, that your identity was in being a husband and being a dad and having a family. So when you go through that loss, there's this emptiness and void and very much a feeling of who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. And that's where we get stuck in the experience of loss. So that's why one of the places we're going to go here soon is the importance of finding yourself again and recreating yourself. So you're creating your identity and who you are again so that you can heal and move forward. Another common theme in the experience of grief and loss is that we begin to, in that experience of feeling that emptiness and feeling that void, can get stuck in our stories of what the relationship was. And it's often that I hear even the stories of good men who I've talked to who have been treated horribly. And they tell me what's happened over the years of their marriage and have been treated horribly by their wives. In the emasculation, they get stuck in a story. But even through that, I was so happy with her and I thought the relationship was wonderful. When we have to take a step back and look at, no, how did you really feel? What was the relationship really like in the face of how your wife treated you? So again, you're working from the level of truth and reality. We cannot heal in our story of how we want to interpret and remember because we're not dealing with the reality of what it's really like. What's interesting and counterintuitive to us is that actually by seeing the reality and being honest about the relationship and how it really was, it's through that place that we can have the warm and good memories of the relationship and be able to see the gifts of the relationship even through the hardship and challenge of what it actually was. So it's really, really important that as you're ready, that you see the reality of what it really was, how you really felt in the relationship and how you were treated. So one, you can have good memories that are genuine and also be able to move forward knowing this wasn't a healthy relationship and it was very dysfunctional, so that you can, as you're ready, move forward. So that's number one, is knowing your wife leaving is a loss. And sometimes we only think of loss with things like death and don't recognize in the experience of a divorce or your wife leaving that that is a loss. Number two of what good men need to know when your wife leaves: your wife will have her emotional hooks in you. Your wife will have her emotional hooks in you. It's one of the things when I work with a woman who has left her husband, it's one of the things I am most stern and direct with them about, is they need to get their emotional hooks out of their ex-husband and the man that they are leaving. It is cruel and unfair and strings them along. So you as a good man have to know that she has her emotional hooks in you. That's part of why you get lost in the holding on and wanting to do everything you can to get her back, even though she's making it clear she's moving on and she's done, is because she still has her emotional hooks in you. Meaning that she still wants to have control over you, manipulate you, and emasculate you. And she can do that without talking to you, without seeing you, for months. It's kind of creepy. We can have our emotional hooks, and I know it through my experience of breakups before I met my husband, that we put our emotional hooks in our men because we do not want to let go, and we want to continue to have that control, manipulation, and weaken you. We still blame you for why things didn't work out. We blame you for our unhappiness. And in that, we want to torture you and keep you under our spell. So it's really important for good men. That's why you need to cut the cord and why you need to move forward as quickly as possible. Because the longer you stay in the grips of those emotional hooks, the weaker you become and the harder it is to be able to let go and move on. The more you will hold on and make your experience very, very difficult, because she still has the power and control. Those emotional hooks can look like stringing you along, of like, she leaves and then, well, maybe there's a chance, and gives you an idea that maybe there's a chance when she has no intention of getting back together. She can still try to confide in you and treat you like a friend and call you when she's in a challenge and needs help. She can do a back and forth of teasing you and keeping you under a spell sexually. And as a good man, you are weak to those powers and in that control that we have as women. And so you can have a moment of weakness and confide in her, share with her, have sex with her, and it deepens those emotional hooks into you, which can keep you very, very stuck. When you know that's what's happening, again, from that place of reality and not letting yourself get blinded by that, that's where you gain the control and power to take those hooks out, because she's not going to. Again, she still wants the control. You especially want to watch confiding in her and sharing with her, because that will come back against you and she will use it as ammo. So it's best to have, as you're going through this process of her leaving and then divorce, she's not your friend. Doesn't mean that you don't still love her and care for her, and that she might be the mother of your children. But through this experience, she is not your friend. She is your enemy and still out to get you. For those of you going through an amicable split, very fortunate, but that's not the case for most men. So you have to know she's not your friend. It's better to look in a constructive way. I don't mean this in a derogatory way. She's your enemy. And you look at it that way. Again, doesn't mean you don't still love her and care about her, because you're a good man. But you do that to protect yourself from those emotional hooks, because you need all the strength in yourself to do what you need to do for yourself to rebuild and to navigate and get through this. So that's really important. That's number 2. She will have her emotional hooks in you, or she does have her emotional hooks in you, so that you can navigate and not allow yourself to continue to give that power away unknowingly. Number 3 of what's really important for a good man to know when his wife leaves him. This is a time when we look at being and can't take responsibility. Number 3 is this is a time to find yourself and recreate yourself and your life. Again, doesn't mean it's not difficult, it's not hard, it's not emotionally painful, but as quickly as you can, you want to seize this as an opportunity and a gift, a time to grow, to find yourself and recreate yourself in your life. After a marriage and having been emasculated for years, good men lose a sense of who they are. And again, as we talked about in the marriage, your wife, your family have become your self-identity. So you have to find you again and rebuild yourself, build your emotional resilience to be able to face what's coming in the emotional turmoil of a divorce. You want to be doing the things to feel good about yourself as a man again, to be rebuilding your strength and confidence. And that's no matter what stage of life you are in, no matter how old you are, it's critical that you use this as a time to rebuild yourself. Again, this is part of Can't Take Responsibility. It's not feeling poor me. It's seeing the opportunity through the pain and through the difficulty to come out from the emasculation, to know who you are again, to feel good about yourself and build yourself. Remember, this is a common experience, and you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a man who gets hurt and angry and gives up? Or do you want to grow and learn and find your way? So this is where I like to share about my mentor, David, who went through this experience, and it was devastating. And the part that was most devastating for him was no longer being able to see his children every day. And he had to dig deep within himself and find his way, because he knew he didn't want to give up. And something that was important to him as a good man was he wanted to learn and grow from the experience, because one of the things that was most important to him in life, next to being a dad, was learning to have a healthy, intimate, loving relationship. And he decided, even after the devastation of his divorce, that he was not giving up on that value of his in life. And so he gave himself plenty of time. He healed. And when he was ready, he got back into the game, because he wanted to have a healthy, loving, intimate relationship. And with what he learned through his marriage and the awarenesses and realizations he came to heal, he understood how he had to remain in control of himself and remain control in a relationship with a woman, to not give his power away. And he was very fortunate to meet my other mentor, Peggy, about 15 years ago. And they have one of the healthiest, most loving relationships that I could ever imagine or see. And they've taught me everything I know, which has allowed me to have a healthy relationship with my husband. So David knew that he needed to find a woman who wants to grow and be her best. And we're out there. We're out there. So if that's important to you, for some men, you'll decide, I went through that, I grew and learned from it. You heal and you decide that's not for me. And it's not for everyone. For some men, that it's still incredibly important to you. So you want to know that that can be a possibility. And that's why you have to focus to rebuild yourself, find yourself, understand the dynamics between a relationship with a woman, and learn to remain in your strength and in your confidence and power as a good man. The other reason that it's really important for you to find yourself again and rebuild yourself in your life is that your ex-wife isn't going to be happy. She's still not going to be happy in herself. because that was the initial problem anyway. And so if you're a dad and you have children, you need to do what you need to do for yourself to be happy and strong in yourself and rebuild your life. They are going to need that and need to see that. And even if you lose your kids in the process of divorce, and this is what David teaches other good men and has taught me to teach good men, is the best thing that you can do is build a life for yourself and thrive, because eventually your children will come around to see the reality of what has happened, the reality of their mother, and the reality of you, and see you as an inspiration that you didn't give up, you kept moving forward, and you rebuilt. So that's number 3, that this is a time to find yourself and recreate yourself in your life. And those are the 3 really important things that good men need to know when their wife leaves. Number 1, your wife leaving is a loss. Number 2, she has her emotional hooks in you. And number 3, that this is a time to find yourself and recreate yourself in your life, even through the difficult time and through that emotional pain. And as I said in the beginning, I want to talk to the women for a moment. And I want you to know that if you're married to a good man, leaving isn't going to make you happy. He's not the problem. The marriage isn't the problem. The problem and why you're fantasizing about some other life and thinking that if you leave that will make you happy is because you are unhappy in yourself, and there's nothing your husband ever could have done, can do, could have stopped doing that would have ever made you happy. So you need to know in leaving that wherever you go, there you are. And a new man or a new life might put a Band-Aid on how you are feeling and the miserableness in yourself temporarily, but eventually you will feel that emptiness in your life again. You will feel the dissatisfaction in yourself. You will feel the insecurity in yourself, because the problem wasn't your husband or your marriage. The problem was your unhappiness in yourself. And there's no one and nothing that can fix that in you but you. So again, wherever you go, there you are. So you still need to work on yourself to be happy in yourself, because a new relationship, a new marriage, a new life isn't going to fix it. I said this a little bit earlier. 50% of first marriages fail, 65% of second marriages fail, and 75% of third marriages fail. So don't fool yourself thinking that a new man is going to make you happy, because it won't. And you will end up in the same place in yourself, whether you want to admit that and see that or not. And if you are leaving, let him go. Take the emotional hooks out and let him go. It is cruel of us, and we all know we do it when we're honest. It is cruel to keep stringing them along and continue to have the control and power over them. Stop it. We all have that choice. We have to be honest with ourselves of all the ways we know we do that and have those emotional hooks in them. So stop. And don't give them false hope when you know you're done. Leave. And make it a clean cut. Do your work and let him go. That's what I want to say to women. Thank you guys. I know this wasn't a light topic today, but it was a really, really important one, because I know how many good men are out there suffering and need some different advice and different perspectives. So I hope this was helpful to you. And again, I'm so sorry if you're going through this, and my heart goes out to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.